Today on Craig Loves Cooking, we're talking bacon. Bacon. You know that bacon that comes out that is crisp and salty and just a little sweet. Today I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm not talking about candied bacon. We're talking about Craig's salty and sweet bacon. And let me tell you, it's a highly requested item. So let's get cooking. Today, before we head over to the stove to actually start baking our bacon, I want to say a few things about some of the other methods you might see. You're going to see some people want to use a rack over top of their pan and they put that in the oven that way. I will tell you this, your bacon will not get crisp enough that way. Part of what makes bacon get crispy is that it's cooking in its own grease. So we're going to make sure that we give the bacon the opportunity to do that. The other thing is the cleanup is awful when you use a rack like that, unless it's something you're going to devote to just using for that. I like to use my cooling racks for cooling cookies. So they need to be cleaned really good after you use bacon on them, and stuff's going to stick. They always seem to have that residue on them. So I don't like using my cooling racks for that anyway. But the way I'm going to show you today is we're going to use aluminum foil, and let me tell you, when you pull that up, if a little bit of grease gets around it, that's all there is. You just put a little soap on there, it comes right off. So the cleanup is super easy today. And the bacon is not candied. You're gonna see some recipes online for candied bacon. This is not candied bacon. And the reason is because I don't care for the candied bacon. Every time I've had it, it sticks to my teeth because when you put sugar in the oven and heat it to a certain temperature, it turns into candy. That's why it's called candy bacon. So you have to be careful, you don't wanna do that, because it doesn't really turn into candy, it turns into like taffy or a real thick caramel. Well, I don't really care for that on my bacon, but I do like it to have sweet. The other thing I want to say real quick is that sugar, we have to remember, is a flavor enhancer. It's very much the kissing cousin of salt. You know how you put salt on to pull the flavor out? You put sugar on for the same reason. It pulls the flavor out. But what we're going to do today is you're going to get bacon that comes out perfect. It just has a little bit of spice to it, a little bit of sweet to it, and perfect crispy. People ask me all the time to make this bacon, and it's embarrassingly easy. So let's head over to the stove and let's get cooking. Now, if you're one of those people that still likes to fry bacon, this is life-changing. So let me go ahead and show you. I just take aluminum foil and line the pan like this. As you can see, this is the inexpensive, this is sort of the cheap aluminum foil, and you can see it doesn't reach all the way to the edge, like grease is gonna get around it, and that's okay, because what we're doing is we're protecting the sheet, the actual pan, from the bacon that has little pieces will come around to the edge, and they will burn on it. So we want it to burn on this, so we can throw that away. So we're gonna put a piece there, and it's not all going to fit on one sheet, so I'm gonna prepare two sheets here. Sorry, that was probably very loud. But what I was saying was, it doesn't all fit on one sheet, so a pound is gonna take a little bit more. So we're gonna go ahead and go with the second. Now, as far as brand of bacon, I'm not picky at all. This week, it happened to be that Black Label was on sale. So let's go for it. But any bacon works. It's amazing how just a few little tricks will make even the cheapest of bacons taste really good. Then you just take your bacon and lay it out. Now you can go ahead and put it very close to the next piece. Just know that if you overlap it at all, it is going to stick to that piece. So I always try to fit as much of it on one sheet as I can. Now there are 4 pieces left. Sometimes if I'm going to be doing like hash browns or something for breakfast, I'll go ahead and cook that bacon up in a skillet and just cook it at low temperature so it doesn't splatter all over the place. And then I'll just use the grease and that bacon to go ahead and just make the home fries in that, which is delicious. But today, since we're just going to be doing the salty sweet, I'm going to go ahead and just start another pan. I like to use about half a teaspoon on every other piece. So 2 pieces, about half a teaspoon of sugar. So what I do is I just get my half teaspoon and then I can go like this and just sprinkle it lightly over 2 pieces. I'm okay with sort of spacing it out with 2. I'm pretty good at that. If you get a little extra sugar on the pan, that's fine. It will actually kind of burn onto it, but since we're using the sheet that we're going to throw away, it doesn't really matter anyway. If you see that you get a big clump like this, just kind of smear it out a little bit so you don't get one big clump of sugar on there. After you've put the sugar on, then I go ahead and just take regular pepper, just give it a little shake the whole way around. Just make sure every piece gets a little bit of pepper on it. Now some people say to use the cracked black pepper. The thing I find with that is it's usually really big pieces. I like to use the finely ground pepper. It seems to sort of flavor the bacon a little better. Now this last part is a little optional. Some people, they already feel that bacon has so much salt in it, and it does, but I like to just give a little sprinkle of salt across the top of it. Not much, just a little bit. People do seem to notice when I don't do that, so I go ahead and make sure I do it. Then turn your oven on to 325. You can do that beforehand, or you can do it now. It doesn't matter either way. It's fine to put bacon in while it's preheating. That's fine. You don't have to wait for the oven to preheat. It's gonna cook no matter what. Just remember that the lower you have your racks, the closer it is to the element in your stove. So of course, it's gonna act more like a burner if it's on really hot for a long period of time when you first turn it on. I always try to make sure that, especially if I'm doing 2 of them, that I have the one rack moved up to the higher spot and the other one right underneath it, because there's room for that cookie sheet to slide in there. Otherwise, they end up really close to the element, and every time it turns on to keep the oven hot, it starts cooking that bottom tray of bacon a lot faster. Bacon can be cut in so many different ways that you have to make sure that you really keep an eye on it. It's not one of those things you can put in the oven and just sort of forget about it. You want to make sure you keep checking on it, that the light is on, and that you sort of peek in. I think anywhere from about 15 minutes to 30 minutes, depending upon the thickness of it. If it's a real thin cut bacon, it's going to cook really quick. If it's thicker, it's going to take a little bit longer. And we will let that cook at 325 degrees for 20 to 25 minutes. Now, this is the first tray that I took out. This was the tray that was on the bottom rack, and like I said, you have to watch it. This is pretty done, but I know my dad would like it, Scott will like it, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this over on here, and you can see it has little, almost black spots on it. But like I said, some people like it that way, they do. It's a little done for me, but I'll eat it. And then just remove it off of there and put it on a paper towel on a plate and drain that extra grease off. I'm gonna go ahead and get the second tray out in just a minute. And notice that even on this tray, where you can see where everything has burnt onto it, the cool thing is with this being on aluminum foil, even though the grease has gone through, there's no cleanup. You literally will drain the grease off, and some people like to save that to use for hash browns or for cooking and other things. My mom loves bacon grease for cooking. But then this is gonna be entirely clean. Super easy cleanup. This to me is about as perfect as bacon can get. It's just that brown where it's a few more minutes it would start to turn dark, but right now it's just sort of getting crisp around the edges, the middle's nice and cooked. This is perfect. And notice how much of a difference it made just being one rack down. These were in about 10 minutes less than these, but because it was just down one more shelf closer to that element, it cooked a lot faster. I also want you to notice one other thing. This bacon, if it were candied, like a lot of people like to candy it, this would start turning black around the edges, and it does not do that when it's cooked at a lower temperature. I cook it at a lower temperature, and we just sort of put sugar on as a flavor enhancer, not as a candy. You can see, now it's coming off now. As soon as that cools, it's gonna get nice and crispy. And that gets that way from cooking in its own oil. If it were up on a rack, it would not get crispy like that. Okay, notice how this pan would be a nightmare to clean. All this baked on, cooked on, sugar and everything else. But because we use the aluminum foil, comes right off, and all you have to do is basically get that grease out of the pan. Okay, you guys know that this is my favorite part of the show where I get to try and eat what we've been making. Before I do that, make sure that you like this video, give me a thumbs up, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, all that, because you're not going to want to miss any of the recipes we go through. Me with an entire plate of bacon, that never happens in this house. So let me go ahead and give it a shot. Wow. It's exactly like bacon should be. Crispy, a little bit sweet, but salty and just a little kick. I love it. Anyway, till next time, remember, Craig loves cooking because Craig loves eating. So we'll see you next time. Bye.